Amigos y amigas, qué alegría que estén acá con nosotros una vez más. Ahí podemos ver en pantalla a mi compañera Vanessa Valladares. Ella está desde la Universidad de Costa Rica, desde el aula magna, ahí con varias impresiones y pósters que se están dando en la cobertura de este Congreso de Química 2022. Entonces, ya casi venimos acá al estudio con nuestros invitados, pero mientras vamos a ver qué nos tienen que contar allá Raquel y Vanessa. Adelante. No se escucha, deben encender el micrófono, Vane. Bien, bueno, mientras ellas solucionan este problema que tienen ahí técnico, quiero contarles que acá a las 2:30 aproximadamente vamos a tener al doctor Floris Rutjes, que es presidente de la European Chemical Society. Él va a ser entrevistado por Manuel Sandoval, director de la Escuela de Química de la Universidad Nacional. Recordemos que el Congreso de Química es una actividad que se está organizando entre las 4 universidades públicas, Universidad de Costa Rica, UNA, TEC y UNED, por supuesto. Entonces, al ser así, bueno, tenemos personas de todas las universidades y esa entrevista va a ser en inglés y por tanto la van a poder ver aquí a partir de las 2:30. Vamos a ver si ya tenemos sonido desde la Universidad de Costa Rica.
Hola, Di.
Ahora sí escuchamos a Vane. Adelante, Vanessa.
Listo, te decía que seguimos acá con más impresiones acerca del Congreso, un Congreso que, como nos decían en la mañana, tiene más de 30 años de no realizarse. Entonces estamos aquí felices desde la UCR y ahora estamos con don René Mora, quien nos estaba contando que él es profesor de la Universidad de Costa Rica, de la Universidad Nacional, y realizó una charla para motivar a sus estudiantes. Don René, primero que todo, ¿cómo ha visto el Congreso, estas primeras charlas de la mañana?
El Congreso ha estado muy interesante y pienso asistir a todas las charlas que pueda y a todas las actividades. Además, el tema del networking, de encontrarse con conocidos, viejos conocidos y conocer nuevas personas, pues eso también es sumamente importante en estas actividades.
Contanos un poquito sobre el póster, esta charla que hiciste para motivar a tus estudiantes.
Sí, esta charla se refiere a poner la química como una profesión que está a la misma altura de otras de las que se habla mucho en YouTube y en otros sitios como la robótica, la inteligencia artificial, la minería de datos, y que se habla mucho que eso es el futuro, pero resulta que la química también es el futuro por muchas razones. Una de ellas porque hay que seguir fabricando un montón de productos, plásticos, textiles, medicinas, materiales de construcción, etcétera, y para todo eso se utiliza la química. Además hay una serie de tendencias como por ejemplo tendencias en la salud, tendencias en las energías renovables, que también requieren de la química para poder ser exitosos en esas líneas. Y finalmente hay retos como por ejemplo el cambio climático, la sobrepoblación, el agotamiento de recursos, que de nuevo los químicos y la química tenemos un papel muy importante que cumplir. Entonces, pues nos va a sobrar trabajo en el siglo XXI.
Una pregunta muy importante que tenés en tu póster: ¿cómo debemos preparar a los estudiantes y futuros profesionales para los retos del futuro? Hablando, por supuesto, en el área de química.
Bueno, en primer lugar, aparte de concienciarlos de que su carrera va a ser muy importante, ¿no?, tanto para el país como para el mundo, pues también los estudiantes y futuros profesionales de química tienen que adquirir una serie de habilidades que incluyen el tema de las habilidades blandas, como pensamiento crítico, resolver problemas, trabajo en equipo, saber hablar, saber vender. También está el tema de los idiomas, por ejemplo. Es el tema de las habilidades digitales, algo tan sencillo como poder manejarse con la tecnología. Esas son cosas que hay que meter dentro de la carrera. O sea, tal vez no en un programa de estudios, pero sí hay que írselo metiendo a los estudiantes.
Don René, tal vez sus expectativas para este congreso.
Pues aprender todo lo que pueda y hacer nuevos amigos y salir con muchas ideas para ver cómo las aplicamos en Costa Rica y en la universidad.
Listo, don René, muchísimas gracias. Don René es profesor de la Universidad Nacional de Costa Rica. Ahora tal vez si nos movemos por acá, Ra, que me ayudas con moviéndonos hacia este sector donde vamos a entrevistar a don Roy Pérez, que también tiene otro póster acá y es de la Universidad Nacional. Don Roy, ¿cómo ha sentido este congreso?
Buenas tardes. Creo que es muy importante y muy pertinente para Costa Rica por el hecho de tener figuras tan importantes a nivel internacional. Le comentaba yo a algunos estudiantes, bueno, hoy tengo dos sombreros, yo soy subdirector de la Escuela de Química de la Universidad Nacional y también soy tutor en la UNED, entonces me he topado muchos estudiantes y el contexto es de que al tener al doctor García y al doctor Floris es el equivalente en tiempos de mundial de tener al presidente de la FIFA y al presidente de la UEFA. Exactamente el mismo cargo. Entonces, el aprovecharlo, sé que ayer el doctor García tuvo una charla en la UNED y también tuvieron una charla en la Universidad Nacional, los dos profesores, es aprovechar cada uno de estos momentos para difundir la ciencia, para difundir la química y conocernos entre nosotros mismos. ¿Por qué? Porque es muy importante que en un país tan pequeño, en donde el esfuerzo de la química tiene que ser tan vital y estar más unidos que nunca, por eso es este congreso. ¿Por qué? Porque tenemos que volver a nosotros mismos, a unirnos en esfuerzos, en acción y en ciencia, principalmente. El día de hoy, este es un póster que tienen algunas estudiantes mías, que también si lo desean puedo comentar un poco. ¿Por qué?
Claro.
Porque es la acción. La química está en muchas partes. En una de las partes en las cuales trabajan algunos de mis estudiantes es en humedales artificiales. Los humedales artificiales son sistemas de tratamiento alternativo de aguas residuales. Estos tipos de sistemas de tratamiento no ocupan energía, ocupan muy poco mantenimiento y este estudio que están realizando es análisis de carbono, ¿verdad? Porque al utilizar aguas residuales, las plantas lo que hacemos es utilizar plantas ornamentales y las plantas ornamentales toman el carbono del agua residual y lo que hacen es depurarla para que tener un porcentaje de eficiencia aproximadamente de un 90% de un 80 a un 90% en materia orgánica, utilizando química en procesos ambientales para la mejora de las condiciones de salubridad, por ejemplo, la del agua.
Eso va muy acorde con la temática del Congreso este año, ¿verdad?
Claro, porque son los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Entonces, una de las situaciones, de hecho, el objetivo número 6 tiene que ver directamente con el agua. Entonces, creo que nosotros tenemos que buscar muchos esfuerzos para ese tipo, que la mayoría de las acciones que nosotros hacemos como investigadores tengan un impacto directo en la sociedad. La química por muchos años ha sido abstracta y ha sido de que se quedan los papers. Nosotros comunicando con todos los directores y subdirectores de las universidades, creo que tenemos que dar ese paso a esa química que ocupe la sociedad, a esa química que sea más correlacionada y que sea útil en procesos fáciles y que ayuden mucho a construir una Costa Rica mejor, principalmente.
Por supuesto, una química que sea, bueno, sabemos que tiene un impacto social, pero que sea más visible su impacto social.
Vea qué importante, porque de toda la vida yo comento con algunos profesores de la universidad, ¿por qué es que nuestros estudiantes cuando están en la escuela no les gusta la matemática, no les gusta la química? Porque posiblemente tengamos conceptos predestinados de nuestros padres, ¿verdad? No, que la química es difícil, que la matemática es difícil. Pero en el momento que nosotros como academia volvamos al estudiante y que le enseñemos que la química está en los procesos sencillos, que la química está en cada una de las cosas y las actividades que nosotros hacemos, posiblemente tengamos a nuestros pequeños estudiantes, niños, que luego van a ser científicos, esperemos, con ese conocimiento pleno de la química. Entonces pasamos de una química o una matemáticas abstracta a una tangible totalmente que puedan aprovechar porque al final termina siendo las ciencias esas carreras del futuro que nosotros necesitamos y que Costa Rica necesita, porque en donde estudiantes que aprecien, que le agarren el sabor a la química y a esos procesos principalmente. Entonces, ese cambio lo tenemos que empezar a hacer ya. Es una pena que hace 30 años no celebremos esta unión de personas de ciencia. Hoy es el nombre de la química, pero sería en ciencias a favor de Costa Rica, ¿verdad? Unirnos para hacer mejores cosas, principalmente.
Muchísimas gracias, don Roy. Con esta gran reflexión de don Roy, hacer que la química sea rica, sea atractiva a los y las niñas en la sociedad costarricense, nos devolvemos al estudio de Onda UNED, donde vamos a tener más charlas, conversatorios, como nos dijo Diana, ahora viene un conversatorio en inglés, entonces para que se queden conectados a Onda UNED y puedan tener las impresiones de este Congreso de Química 2022. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
Bienvenidos y bienvenidas una tarde más a esta cobertura del Congreso de Química 2022 hacia el desarrollo sostenible. Estamos desde el estudio de Onda UNED aquí en la rectoría de la UNED, de la Universidad Estatal a Distancia, y ya tenemos a nuestros invitados con nosotros. Déjenme presentarles al doctor Floris Rutjes, que es presidente de la Sociedad Química Europea, y también tenemos con nosotros a Manuel Sandoval. Él es director de la Escuela de Química de la Universidad Nacional. Ellos van a conversar hoy, lo van a hacer en inglés, y van a tener una conversación sobre el tema Green Chemistry. Entonces, ya casi vamos con ellos. Continuamos aquí en Onda UNED y muchísimas gracias por su sintonía.
Onda UNED.
Acortando distancias.
Hola, muy buenas tardes. Voy a presentarme en español y luego pues voy a hacer la entrevista en el idioma inglés. Mi nombre es Manuel Sandoval, trabajo en la Escuela de Química de la Universidad Nacional. Actualmente soy el director de la Escuela de Química y pues contamos con un invitado internacional, una persona a quien estimamos muchísimo y es de un gran prestigio académico como es el doctor Floris Rutjes. Voy a empezar a decirlo en inglés. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Manuel Sandoval, and I'm glad to be here presenting Professor Dr. Floris Rutjes, who is now the director of the Institute of Molecules and Materials in Radboud University in the Netherlands. And he also is the president of the European Chemical Society. Welcome, Dr. Rutjes.
Thank you.
The topic for today is the green chemistry, but before I start talking, I want to ask you, when did you arrive? How have been your time in Costa Rica? Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, of course. I arrived last Friday, and I needed the Saturday a bit to recover. But on Sunday we went on a nice trip to see some waterfalls. So far, it has been very enjoyable.
Well, what is your perception about Costa Rica as a country? Opportunities to develop, about the industry, maybe about these days you have been here. Previously, you've been here before. So, would you like to tell us your perception, your idea? How do you think is Costa Rica? What opportunities we have, and what things we must be doing in order to develop in the country?
Yeah, of course, that is not so easy to tell after a few days in Costa Rica. And indeed, I was here like 4 years ago, giving a summer school. And I must say, also, I gave some lectures yesterday. The enthusiasm with which the lectures were received by the students, that was really rewarding. And from that impression 4 years ago and a few days that I'm here now, I get the impression that there is a really strong chemistry community that more and more is organizing itself. And I think that will also give opportunities to further grow the chemical industry, the chemistry that is going on in this country.
Thank you very much, Professor. About the topic that we have today, the green chemistry, could you tell to the people who's watching us your perception or your definition of green chemistry?
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you what do you mean with green chemistry, but let me tell what I consider green chemistry. I think green chemistry is very diverse, and one way to describe green chemistry is using the 12 principles of green chemistry, which tells you which are some basic guidelines for how you should conduct chemical reactions in the lab, but also on larger scale in an industry. And for example, that means that you should aim for catalytic conversions instead of using one-on-one chemical reagents. You should preferably use chemically benign reagents and not toxic reagents. If you make compounds, then you should design the compound such that they can degrade or that they can be reused. And so, so there are 12 of those principles, and if you follow those principles, then the chemistry should be more sustainable than the chemistry that we are doing right now.
Okay, thank you very much. What do you think are the 3 more important tasks from the green chemistry principles, thinking about those principles that chemical industry needs to meet in the present decade?
Yeah, that is not an easy question. And so I think in every country, in every community, chemistry is being done at different levels. We teach students chemistry, and we do research at like an academic level in universities. This is very small scale, and even I would say if you work with toxic reagents, the impact on society would be really small. But then the next step is industry, that is producing compounds, that is developing chemical processes. And if they would still use, of course, the people that work there, they are educated on the universities. So the first step would be, I think, to, in academia, make students aware of what green chemistry is, how they should think about reactions, about doing reactions, designing reactions in such a way that they are more sustainable than we have been taught when we were studying. And those students will go to industry, and they will look at a different way than at chemical reactions, at chemical processes, than the people that are currently working in industry. So that, I think, is one important aspect. And I think also companies, they should be, by regulation, by law perhaps, be forced to make their processes more sustainable also. So, but on the other hand, we as consumers, and that is perhaps the third dimension, we, the people that buy products that in the supermarkets, everywhere, we typically would like to pay a low price. Yes. But the cheapest product may not be the most sustainable product. And if companies are forced to develop sustainable processes, then initially those products may be more expensive because the companies need to invest. And so that may also mean that we as consumers, as society, should also be prepared to pay a little bit more for things that are produced in a more sustainable manner. So I think there are many aspects to green chemistry. It is in the education, in the way chemicals produce, but also I think we have to educate the consumers that they should be prepared to pay a little bit more for products that are then more sustainable.
This is a very good example of the challenge, that meaning to try to change to a green chemist or a green based economy. The example you use, for example, thinking in the typical plastic dishes or the plastic containers that we usually have a very cheap prices, and now if we want to change to bio-based containers, so it's more expensive. So people needs to be aware and understand that this kind of things usually are more expensive. I don't know, probably at the beginning, and then when the industry produces a lot of this kind of things, probably the prices maybe goes down or not.
Yeah, sure. So you need an initial investment to develop new products, to develop new technology, to develop new processes. So that means that in the beginning, indeed, products will be more expensive, but then if they are produced on larger scale, if they are going to replace existing products, then the volume will increase and then prices will drop. So in the end, I think new sustainable products don't have to be more expensive, but in the initial stages, an investment is required to develop a new products, new processes. But I think that is also where opportunities are. If you could think of a new packaging material or a new process for producing whatever, and you could export that knowledge or that product to other countries, you could also expand, you could also even grow your economy from having developed new things. So if you don't restrict the market to Costa Rica itself, but also to other countries that are also looking for more sustainable products, then there could even be huge advantages in the end.
I want to talk about the green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is like something that is still sound very often in Costa Rica. And yesterday, the government present something very important about that. So have you seen the way Costa Rica produces electricity? The idea is to produce green hydrogen using electricity from hydroelectric plants. So what do you think about the green hydrogen as a potential industry in Costa Rica?
Yeah. Now, so when you talk about green hydrogen, and then I'm used to the situation in Europe, the situation in the Netherlands, and then we always talk about production of hydrogen using solar panels, using wind energy. But indeed, here in Costa Rica, you have many differences in heights. You have a lot of water. I saw the waterfalls. I saw the strength of the waterfalls last Sunday. And the waterfalls are always there, day and night, whether there's sunshine or not, whether there's wind or not, the waterfalls are always there. So I think that is a unique opportunity to use and to produce green energy, indeed.
If we produce green hydrogen, what would be the most recommended way to export hydrogen products, for example, ammonia or some kind of different compounds, or to export hydrogen, or to export, I don't know, any other form of this good?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert on hydrogen, but I think transporting hydrogen and storing hydrogen is somewhat more difficult. So it's typically better. I think that ammonia is a good carrier of hydrogen, and easier to handle and safer to handle than hydrogen itself. So typically, I think you don't transport the hydrogen, but you store it in something, in another chemical or in another way, and then locally produce from there again the hydrogen, so that you have a safer transport and an easier way to transport the hydrogen, indeed. But what then the best possible way is, I'm not enough an expert on that to be able to tell, I must admit.
Okay.
But maybe, so you were talking about the green hydrogen, but perhaps there are many more opportunities in, so you have a nature that is also very rich in organisms. So I'm also sure that many plants, they have unique enzymes that could do chemical conversions rather than chemical reagents. So I'm pretty sure that if you start exploring enzymatic activity of certain plants and how that could be used to produce chemical products in a sustainable manner using enzymes as chemical reagents rather than using chemical reagents themselves, I think there may also be opportunities for much greener, much more safe, sustainable production of all kinds of products.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are going to a small pause and continue later in some minutes.
Onda UNED.
Acortando distancias.
Coming back after the break, um, I have some questions for the Professor Rutjes, who is with us today. Um, I want to ask when someone develop green technology in any area, what are the main challenges? Probably we talking a little bit before. What are the main challenges to taking these green technologies from academia, normally in the universities, where are doing research and they develop this kind of technologies, and from academia to the market? What are the main challenges to taking these green technologies from academia to the market?
Yeah, well, that is also not an easy question. But so if you talk about new inventions at the university and academia, then this is a scientific invention, and it's. But then, if you want to translate it to a product or a technology that's going to be used in society, it needs to be adapted, and it needs again investments to be developed into a real application, and so that is, I think, also a very complex process, and but I think it starts with recognizing the potential of the scientific invention at the university, and so I think it starts with the academic or the researcher that actually has made the invention, that's you recognize the potential, and that you not just immediately publish this in a scientific journal, but that you also look, can this technology be patented?
Did you consider that some academics, some professors, researchers in the universities or research institutes, maybe they prefer to publish something that could be sent to the market or to the technology transfer, and they instead before they prefer not to patent, just to publish?
Well, it's so most academics, they are very much focused on publishing. So if they have found something nice that they think they can put in a good journal, then many of the scientists I know, they would immediately write a manuscript and submit it to the publisher. But in my own group, we always look first, well, could there be some commercial potential? Could this be relevant for society? So should we patent this first, protect the knowledge first before we publish? And it's only a relatively small step. You patent the invention, and then after that you can still publish. So, but then there's also a possibility to actually do something with this technology.
Do you have patents from your research works?
Yeah, on average, I would say we file a patent once a year.
Once a year.
Yeah, and then often, so if you file a patent, then that is still relatively cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It does not cost much more than an open access publication, I would say. But after 2 years or so, 2.5 years, then you have to decide, will I keep the patent? Am I going to pay for the patent? And depending on the countries in which you want to use the patent, you pay more. So if you want to pay for entire Europe, then that costs like 10,000 euros per year. If you want to have more countries, then you pay more, and those costs recur every year. So if there's not a commercial party that is willing to pay for those costs, then the university, my university, will drop the patent, and then it's gone. So I have to make sure that I find then a party that is going to pay for the patent, and otherwise we just let it go.
Would you like to explain us maybe some example that you consider for your life interesting or relevant in your patent experience?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, we were looking into a new conjugation technology. How can you connect reactions in a very easy way? We were actually looking for click reactions. And we developed a molecule that had very good properties as a conjugation reagent. And we patented that compound. And then a company was founded based on that patent. And they started to develop applications for that conjugation technology. And in particular, they were looking for applications in the field of drug antibody conjugates, which are now an important class of drugs. medicines. And they did that very successfully. And right now there are like 10 drug antibody conjugates tested in a clinic that have this conjugation technology in it. And of course, there are commercial big pharma companies paying for those clinical trials. But and in that way, the university also gets revenues, gets money from this patent. So last year, there was like 100,000 euros coming back to the university because of this patent on this click chemistry technology.
This is a very good example and very interesting example about it. How the academia produces.
But if I may continue, so the patent is important, but then filing a patent, then it only starts, because then you have to start looking, how can I commercialize this patent? Can I find companies that are interested in licensing this patent, in using this patent and paying for it? Or should we are there people interested to start a spin-off company and develop the invention further so that in the end the spin-off company can pay for the patent? And that, of course, requires an investment in time and effort and dedication of people to look for opportunities and look for the commercial applications. But and I cannot do that myself, so I like to stay involved in research, but I try to make other people enthusiastic to commercialize then this new knowledge. And often I can find students, co-workers that are very much interested to do that and that start working on this.
Okay. I want to continue with the topic, maybe with probably one last question. And the question is, what will be the importance of the green chemistry looking forward in a prospective way, maybe thinking for the next 3 decades, for the next 30 years? What would be the importance of green chemistry for the chemical industry around the world, the globe?
The importance. Yeah, you are asking difficult questions.
Oh, thank you. Well, I don't know, it's something.
But yeah, so obviously there are several aspects to this as well. In 1973, there was the Club of Rome expressing its worries about all the consumers, about the waste that was being produced in chemical production, resources that would finish. And in 1973, there were 4 billion people living on this planet. Right now, we are at 8 billion citizens in this world and an increasing welfare. So that has caused that the burden on the earth as a whole has increased tremendously since then. And we cannot continue like this because resources are being depleted, pollution is rising, the climate is changing, temperatures are changing. So clearly we have to start doing things differently. Otherwise we will simply not survive. Yeah, that is so. And companies, of course, that play a very important role in this whole process. And so they simply have to adapt, become more sustainable, but we also as a society have to become more sustainable. As I mentioned, we have to be prepared to pay more for more sustainable products. But in the end, I think it is required, but then I think companies should also see this as an opportunity. If you as a company develop new sustainable products, then there's not only a market in Costa Rica, there's also a market probably in whole South America or in whole America or perhaps in the whole world. So I think there is simply the necessity to become more sustainable, but I think that companies and academics also should simply see it as an opportunity. And then I think there are many opportunities now waiting to be discovered or to be commercialized.
Would you like to share concluding remarks, last closure message for people watching us?
Yeah, now maybe then another example. So that comes from a company in the Netherlands, DSM. So initially in the 60s, they were a company that were mining coal in the south of the Netherlands. So DSM originally stands for Dutch State Mines. But then the mines were closed. They transformed into a chemical industry, but mainly producing bulk chemicals. Now they transformed into a company that makes performance materials and is also producing more sustainable foods, I would say, or food additives. But one of the materials that they developed, they called Niaga, Niaga, and that was these are materials that are developed for reuse, and they are doing very well. People are increasingly willing to buy those products. Other companies buy those products, and I think this is a very good example of how you could look at more sustainable products. And what I've only found out recently, I never understood this name, but if you read this name the other way around, then it says again, which stands for the reusability of this product. And I think we should look for many more examples of this, and that will definitely help to make companies and the world and ourselves as a society become more sustainable.
Well, I want to thank you for being in Costa Rica, for being our guest, and for sharing this time with us and this nice talk. Thank you very much, Professor Rutjes.
Thank you.
Bueno, a quienes nos están viendo, vamos a...
Onda UNED.
Acortando distancias.